In the third session of Tie It All Together, CCS Social Studies Points of Emphasis, we are focusing on engagement. Engagement refers to exhibiting curiosity, interest, motivation, and critical thinking. How do we teach for engagement? Again, we return to the TCI approach and look at the TCI engagement strategies. These strategies promote active learning, multiple intelligences, and reflect the multiple means of engagement and representation that is part of the UDL framework. TCI's engagement strategies are rich in visual material, including hands-on placards. And the TCI engagement strategies are integrated with the textbook and interactive notebook. Let's take a look inside a TCI program. Here we're in History Alive, the 7th grade edition customized for Ohio. In this lesson is the legacy of Rome in the modern world. So our engagement strategy is here under activity. And you can see our essential question: to what extent does ancient Rome influence us today? And you'll notice as we go through the presentation, you can see here if I want to use the printed interactive student notebook, I have that available as well. But in this response group activity, you can see it's going to be tied to the textbook and interactive notebook, whether I'm using the digital version of the text and interactive notebook or the print edition. The response group strategy is built into that. So this is what it looks like from the presentation side. From the same chapter, here's the student text. You can see the preview activity in this case is also built into the text and interactive notebook. And as I get into section 1, students are going to be reading the text and examining the visuals and using that as part of this response group strategy and completing the interactive notebook. So one of the things that is unique about TCI is that the textbook is built around the lesson, and the lessons are built around the engagement strategies. So this is not a traditional textbook that simply provides you a text and then has you figure out how to teach with it. TCI is a lesson-based program and a strategy-based program. So the textbook is intentionally designed to help you teach these particular strategies in the context of these particular lessons. Next, I want to take a look at some of the engagement strategies themselves, the names of those, and where you can find more information about these strategies. So I'm going to take us out to this interactive methods guidebook, and this is linked to our social studies homepage as well. And here I can see not only the inquiry-based approach, but I can see the specific titles for each of these active learning engagement strategies. And I can find out more information about how to implement each of these strategies. So in the TCI lessons themselves, they will, of course, define and describe the specific strategy as it applies to that particular lesson. But I always say the power of TCI is really the power to adapt it. And to understand the underlying pedagogy behind TCI is very important to be able to adapt it for your students' specific needs. So for example, response group was the strategy in the previous lesson. Now I need to be logged into my CCS Google account because this is part of TCI's program. So we are using it as part of our TCI adoption. And you can see the steps at a glance for implementing response group, along with lengthy descriptions and examples of what response groups look like. And we follow that same pattern for each of these strategies, along with the other steps in the inquiry phase. So if I want to know more about writing for understanding, again, I pull up this file, which provides me with all of the steps at a glance and examples and tips for implementing writing understanding in the classroom. Again, this is really important when you want to customize and be able to tailor these lessons to meet your specific needs, is to understand the underlying approach. Another important aspect in TCI's engagement program are the processing assignments. Processing assignments are wrap-up activities. These allow students to synthesize and apply what they have learned in creative ways. Here again, we can utilize the UDL framework, and we can see that processing assignments promote multiple means of action or expression. I've given you several examples of processing assignments on the screen that come from various programs. Students can do an illustrated dictionary entry, as you see the Monopoly here. They can do an invitation, as you see the example, a convention to revise the Articles of Confederation from American history. They can do an advertisement, fantastic job opportunities for immigrants. They can do illustrated proverbs, as this one does with the Loyalist proverb. And to strengthen vocabulary, they can do picto words. These are all examples of processing assignments. Now, again, each TCI program will have specific processing assignments connected to it. But it's also important to think about, again, the underlying pedagogy of processing assignments. Processing assignments provide opportunities for students to have voice and choice. You could, for example, create processing assignments as a choice board or a menu of options where students can go in and select which processing assignments they would like to do. You can do processing assignments in paper pencil format. You can do them in the TCI digital platform. They are built into, again, the textbook and interactive notebook. And you can also do processing assignments using other digital apps. I've given you some examples here. Adobe Spark. Canva is a highly recommended tool that students can use to design all sorts of processing assignments. A very simple tool that students may already know, Google Drawings or Google Slides. Powtoon, StoryboardThat, Sutori, World Book Timeline Creator. All of these tools are free, at least to some extent. Some do have upgraded paid versions, but students can do some processing assignments in all of these for free. Let's go back a little bit and look at our interactive menu now, and let's look at some examples of processing assignments in more depth. So here we have, again, the chapter from the Methods Guidebook that leads me through exactly how to do processing assignments. So each lesson will have a specific processing assignment tied to it. But if you want to modify and adapt and expand how you're doing processing assignments, if you want to provide students with choice in processing assignments, you can go here and get about 20 different ideas for doing processing assignments. Some of these will work with just about any lesson. Here, advertisements, we see examples of advertisements, annotated illustrations, new book or CD covers, caricatures, commemorative markers, eulogies, facial expressions, forms of poetry, illustrated dictionary entries, illustrated proverbs, invitations, journals, metaphorical representations, mosaics, perspective pieces, picto words, political cartoons and comic strips, postcards, posters, report cards, sensory figures, spectrums. You can see a wide range of the types of activities that students have the ability to engage in with processing assignments, and why we believe that processing assignments are another way to promote active student engagement in your classroom. As we wrap up this session on engagement, I'd ask you to reflect on a few questions. Which TCI engagement strategies work well in your classroom? What ideas do you have for processing assignments? What digital tools do you think students might use for these processing assignments?